Today we are going to do an introduction to oil pastels. You need the items that you see here in front of you. Let's get started. Open up your sketchbook and open up your oil pastels. I'm going to put my oil pastels up at the top of my paper. You're going to need your pencil. It really doesn't matter what you're drawing with, it's just going to give you some outlines. So whatever is handy, if it is your 6B or your HB, or if it's a colored pencil, it doesn't really matter. Let's go ahead and start to get to know our oil pastels by using them to create a color wheel. The first thing that you're going to do is to find your large circle template, put it on your paper, and trace it. The next thing that you're going to do is to try to find the center of your circle and mark it with a little cross. It's okay if it's a little high or a little low. If it's close to the center, it's fine. Now take that little cross and extend it out to the right and to the left. This will subdivide your circle into a top part and a bottom part. The next thing that we want to do is to subdivide each the top and the bottom into 3 equal-ish pieces of pie. So if I can imagine just the top part of my circle, break it into 3 even-ish pieces of pie, like I was cutting pumpkin pie for Thanksgiving or something like that. And then you can go ahead and extend those lines down. And just kind of go slow. Try to get it as even as you can, and close is always close enough. In a color wheel, we have 3 primary colors and 3 secondary colors. So let's go ahead and write color wheel. And we have 3 primary colors. These are our base colors that we can make every other color from. So those 3 colors are red, yellow, and blue. So we're going to start by making our yellow at the top. So we'll mark it with a Y. We'll put our red down in the bottom right pie piece and mark it with an R. And the bottom left pie piece will be blue. Once we color these in, then we will be using our oil pastels to create our secondary colors. And those 3 secondary colors are made by mixing 2 out of the 3 primary colors. We'll come back to those in a minute. Go ahead and pick out your brightest red. This is very close to our primary red. And we're just going to use the oil pastel to outline our red pie piece. And then just to color it in, we're really shading it. And I'm using pretty good pressure and really good coverage, which just means that I'm not going to have a lot of white paper showing underneath that. Now you can put that away. Next, we're going to find our blue that is closest to our primary blue. This is the cobalt blue, and over in the B, we're going to outline that pie piece, and again, just shade it in. It feels like we're using crayons, but actually oil pastels are really special because they have the oil base. They give you these vivid colors, but you can blend them, and they're just really beautiful. All right, so that is our primary blue. And then you have two yellows, one that is more of a lemony yellow and one that is a little bit more of a canary yellow. We're going to use the one that is the lemony yellow. And fill in that yellow. There you go. Now, one of the secrets to oil pastels is blending, and you can use your finger, you can use some tissue paper, and you can also use Q-tips. Depending on the size of the area that you're blending, if it's a big area, tissue paper works really well. And this is probably a little bit small for tissue paper. So you might try it, taking tissue paper and seeing if it blends. I think actually I'll probably use the Q-tip or my finger. But the nice thing about the Q-tip is that it gives me a lot of control. So the thing that you just want to remember with blending is that whatever color is on your Q-tip will be blended in to the next color unless you change sides or go to a nice clean Q-tip. I like to use little circles, or along the edge I like to use straight lines. In this case, if it's a curved edge, a curved line, just to blend it, really pushing it into the paper. I'm going to set this aside and grab one for my blue. Okay, once you have all of your primaries colored in and blended, we're going to go to our secondary colors. So the three secondary colors are made up by mixing two primaries. So if you mix a red and a blue, you get purple. This is also called violet. Oops. So we're going to put violet right between the red and the blue. If you mix yellow and red, you get orange. And if you mix yellow and blue, you get green. So we're going to take these pie pieces that are our secondary colors, and we are going to break them up by making a line that breaks the pie piece into the corner, or the, I guess the center triangle, and then this outside shape. So each of these should have a center triangle, and then an outside, center triangle, and outside. Now on the center triangle that's on the inside, the closest to the center, we're going to use pre-mixed colors from our Qtip oil pastels. So you can pick the orange that is the most orangey orange. It's just very orangey. It looks like an orange that I might eat. Like one of those little cuties. I'm going to clean mine off because it had a little bit of color on it. That's just going to plop that right in there. nice and heavy. And do a little bit of blending. And now on the outside, we're actually going to mix or combine or blend our yellow and our red in order to see how close to the pre-mixed color we come with an orange that is literally created by mixing our yellow and our red. So we're going to first take our lightest color, the yellow. Yellow is considered a weak color because it's so light. It takes a lot of yellow in order to balance out this very strong red. So when I add red on top of this yellow, I'm just going to barely touch. It might look like I'm pushing down, but I'm barely touching. And now I'm going to use my, I'm gonna find a part of my Q-tip. The back part of this Q-tip doesn't have anything on it. And I'm going to see what happens when I blend those colors together. It should give me an orangey color. Now it looks like it's pretty strong in the red, so maybe I can make it a little bit more yellowy by putting another layer of yellow on it. And it is starting to get a little bit more orange. Well, you can see why we like the pre-mixed orange, because it's so strong and pure. But to me, the subtlety of the yellow plus the red makes a very, very interesting orange. We're gonna do the same thing with the greens. So let's start by mixing our yellow and our blue on the outside and see what happens. Again, I'm using that lemon yellow, and I'm going to put a pretty good layer down before I add my cobalt blue. Very similarly to the red, this cobalt blue is very strong, so it does not take, I'm just barely kind of like touching it along the top. I'm no pressure at all. Look, it's almost like falling out of my hand because there's no pressure at all. And then I'm gonna see with a new Q-tip what happens when I blend these together. It'll take a little bit of work for the yellow and the blue to blend together, but they should start to create a greenish color. And look at that. They sure do. Now I can compare that to actually truly the perfect green is a little bit lighter than this dark green and a little bit darker than this light green. But we're going to use not the darkest green you've got. I think you have like, these are all of the greens that we have options of. This one's too dark. This one is too muted, too olivey. And this one is a little bit too light. So we're gonna go with this green here. Now you can see this pre-mixed green is very vibrant. It's very bright. And it's not very similar to our mixed green. But we could definitely use both of these for different purposes. To me, this looks more tree-ish, like realistic, and this looks like more cartoony tree-ish. We're going to do the same thing down here. So we're going to take our red and our blue and mix them on the outside. So between the two of them, I think that the red is the weaker color. So we'll put that down first. And I'm not sure how much pressure to put down. I'm doing kind of half and half. And then our blue blue, letting it sit on top. And it should create a kind of violet. And it does. Even before we blend it, you can see it's a little bit muddy, but it's definitely a violet. Take a Q-tip, blend those together. The Q-tip seems to kind of like grab a little bit of the oil pastel to begin with. So you can always do another layer on top of the oil pastel if you think that it needs a little bit more blue or a little bit more red. It looks to me like it's a little more red and not quite equal parts. So just kind of put a little bit more blue down there, and now you can mix it. Purples are one of the hardest colors to blend across the board, no matter what material you're using. And that's why you often get really nice pre-mixed purples. They're just hard to blend. So let's try to find the purple that would be closest to our secondary purple. Of the two options that we have, they're so similar, I don't know that it even matters. There's one that's a little bit more reddish, one that's a little bit more bluish, and it probably doesn't really even matter which of the two you use. So we have our pre-mixed purple, orange, and green in the center, and then having used our primary colors, we have the mixed colors, blended colors on the outside. And we can make a little note to ourselves. Center, pre-mixed colors, outside, blended colors. Awesome. We're going to do two more things so that we get to know our oil pastels. We're going to do a value study and then a complement study. So down here we can write value study. Now what is value? Value is lights and darks. You have dark values and light values. So we are going to make a value study of our red and our blue and our yellow. We're going to have lights over on the left side and darks over on the right side for each of these. So you can just make these rectangles. We're also going to do our secondary colors. So we'll do oranges, greens, and violets. So this will just let us do some values in the same color. So these are monochromatic. And the thing that I love about these crayons is that they really set you up very nicely for this to begin with. So for instance, if we work with our reds, we're going to take what would be the lightest version of a red, which is maybe even just a little darker than white. So I think the thing that's closest is probably, you could say this beigey color. This is almost like skin tone color. And then our darkest red, which is also our brightest red, which is our fire engine red. It is also our primary red. And then a red that is in between. And there's one red that is in between. You really could, you could call it pink in between, or you could call it this orangey red. I think I'm going to go with the pink in between. And we're going to start on the left with our lightest beige, and we're going to color that in starting on the left and going about halfway across. And then we're going to start on the right with our very bright red and go halfway across. And then with our pink in the center, we're going to overlap so that we're blending into the red and into the light beige. And then we're going to get our Q-tip, and we're going to mix or blend it using the Q-tip, and you always, always, always go light to dark when you blend. I like to do these little circles. It helps you get a really nice even blend. There you go. We're going to do the same thing with our blues. Pick the lightest blue, which is kind of the sky blue, the darkest blue, which looks to me like there's two contestants, one that has a little bit more red in it and one that has a little bit more green in it. I think either one of those is fine. And then our cobalt blue in between. We're going to start with the lightest blue, color about halfway across your rectangle. Your darkest blue, color about halfway across your rectangle. And then overlap using your cobalt, going into the lightest and into the darkest. Just like that. Get a part of your Q-tip that you haven't used yet. I'm going to use the back side of this one so that I don't use all my Q-tips. Start with the lightest side, blend into your medium, and then blend into your dark. Beautiful. We're just going to march. That's Gideon in the background. March right along with our yellow. We're going to take our lightest, brightest yellow. And yellow's kind of tricky. This is a yellow ochre, O-C-H-R-E, very popular in art. And then I guess the darkest yellow would be this kind of like putty color. So let's give that a shot. All right, yellow, lightest, shading from the light side toward the center, the darkest from the right to the center, and then overlapping with our medium yellow, giving us that ombre effect. And I'm going to be using the back part of this Q-tip. All right, looking good. Moving on to the oranges. So we have our brightest orange, we have a light orange, and you could talk me into going one of two directions. You could say light, medium, and dark, or call me crazy. Ooh, is there another one? That might be the darkest orange right there. Okay, I'm gonna say the beige is the lightest. This kind of muted orangey color is the darkest. And since I only want to blend 3 colors for this exercise, I'm going to keep my brightest orange in there. You could talk me into, say, this color combination too. That would be perfectly acceptable. or you could do this color combination. It's up to you. Remember, there's, you know, guidelines, but art is intuition too, so trust your intuition. You get to decide. Isn't that a wonderful thing? Remember to overlap your colors. They're going to blend a lot more easily. And I'm trying to find a nice place on my Q-tips that haven't been used. Here's one. Start with the lightest. Little circles. Blending, blending, blending. There we go. Hey, that worked out just fine. Okay, moving on to green. Okay, let's take a look at our greens. All right, so we have 4. We want to limit it to 3. So we want our darkest and our lightest, and then it comes down to these 2 in the middle. Honestly, you could talk me into either using the olive green in the middle or using this brighter green in the middle. I think just because this is the green that we used on the color wheel, that's the one that I'm going to go with. But this would be considered a medium value green. And since we're doing lights, mediums, and darks, then it totally makes sense. You could talk me into using that olive. Okay, taking my light green across and my dark green. And then my bright green in the middle, overlapping. And I think I'm going to have to dig in. Oh, do I? Nope, yep. New Q-tip. Starting in the lightest, working my way across. I don't want to lose that light green. And then into the dark green. And the goal is just to blend it so that it's a nice transition from light to dark, like an ombre, and not like a rainbow. Blending means lightly transitioning. And the last one, let's take all of our purples out. Take a look. Is there another purple in here? Not really. Is this a purple? I feel like I should test it. Here's a scratch. I think that's a black. Okay, definitely don't want that. That's a blue. And that's another blue. Very interesting. Very interesting. So we only have 2 purples. I guess if you had to pick which is lighter or which is darker, honestly, it's kind of impossible. I am going to start with, this is not a purple, but I don't know what to tell you other than that's what I'm going to start with because it's the lightest thing and it's closest to purple. I know it doesn't really make sense. I don't know. You could say blue is closer. This is more of a pinkish, beigeish. Maybe blue is closer. I don't know. Maybe we should do blue. I don't really know what to do about this, guys. What do you think we should do with the violet? Maybe we should just go light to dark. Let's do that. Or dark to light. I don't know. We're going to blend these into each other. How about that? The whole goal of this is just, oh my goodness, they look almost exactly the same. Okay, well, there you go. The goal is just to get to know your materials. And so that's what we're doing. And it's okay that there's only 2 purples, right? It's all good. Circle, circle, circle. All right. Value study. Light to dark, to light to dark. Okay. So the last thing that we're going to do is to mix some complements. So over here you can write complement mixing. You might be wondering, what is a complement? A complement, actually complements, complementary colors are colors that are opposite on the color wheel. So since we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 colors on the color wheel, we have 3 pairs, and those pairs are opposite each other, and they are complements. So let's write that down. Complementary colors are 2 colors on opposite sides of color wheel. Okay, so we only have these two, which are red and green. So we're going to go red and green. We have these two, which are violet and yellow. We're going to go V for violet. And we've got violet and yellow and red and green. The other two are orange and blue. Orange and blue. So we are going to put pure red and pure green in these 2 boxes, and then in the middle, these colors are our complements. The mixed colors in the middle are the complements. So let's start with our red and green. So we're going to pick the same as our primary red, and we're going to put primary red, right, yeah. And primary green, we are going to use the pre-mixed color and put that right here. And then we're going to actually blend them together. So we're going to put a layer of red and a layer of green. Feels very Christmassy. Now, when you mix complements, they neutralize each other. And if you mix these together, you can see I ended up wiping off some of my green. So I'm going to go ahead and put another layer of green on top. Then it really dulls down the color, and it turns it into a gray or a brown. So this would be considered kind of a neutral gray color. We can blend our green if we want to, and see if I have a already mixed red. So when you blend colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel, it neutralizes them. So this is really important for artists to know for a couple of reasons. One thing, as I'm talking, I'm going to go ahead and do violet, and we've determined that there's essentially no difference in our 2 violets, so feel free to use whichever one you want. And our lemon yellow. So since so much of using oil pastels is blending, I just put yellow down, and now I'm going to put a little bit of purple on top. Remember, the purple is very strong compared to that weak yellow. So a lot of times what happens is students will, they'll have a very bright color and they want to make it not so bright. So for instance, if I was making green grass and this was like just too cartoony, I could add a little bit of red and it would dull it. It would neutralize that green just a little bit. The other reason that you want to kind of keep this in mind is because a lot of times we blend colors accidentally and we don't want them to be dull. We want them to be vivid, and when they're complementary colors and you end up blending them, they might look great separated, but together they might be too dull for you. So you want to keep that in mind. And then orange, I'm going to go ahead and get my bright orange. And my cobalt primary blue. And then we're going to blend those as well. Since the orange is the weaker of the two colors, I'm going to put that on the bottom and then the blue on top. And you can kind of see how it neutralizes, the blue neutralizes the orange, even without mixing them or blending them. Okie doke. That's it. That's our little study. And I left the top nice and open because I want to do something really fun. I'm going to write in big block letters, Oil Pastels. And then I definitely ended up crowding this over here. It's okay, no big deal. And then if you want to, you can color them in with the oil pastels, or maybe I'll just do something kind of fun down here, and I'm gonna draw this big bottom, but I'm gonna let some drips come down. And then I'm just gonna go crazy with my oil pastels. You can do whatever you want. Write oil pastels up at the top, and then if you wanna follow along, you can go ahead and do so. I'm just gonna go crazy and really enjoy these beautiful colors. Feel free to go along with me if you would like to, or if you wanna do your own thing, then that's fine too. I'm just gonna kind of think of the rainbow. So I'm gonna blend in from my yellow into my orange. I'm overlapping because I know I don't want it to be, I want it to be the ombre effect, not like a rainbow. So I'm gonna take this orange over here, and then I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna grab my red and I'm gonna overlap and blend in to my orange, and then I'm gonna come up here and make some nice red drips. And I'm lightening, I'm barely touching, so that I can pick up, let's see, maybe some purples, overlapping, coloring into my red, making some purple drips. Like so. I'm gonna come in with some blue, overlap into my purple, make that bluish. Go back over here, take it back up. Ooh, you know what? I really like that. I like having that white in there because it looks like it's wet. Okay. All right. Some lighter over here. And I'm gonna go super dark blue, overlapping. I think to me the biggest thing to remember is to overlap your colors if you're going to be blending them so that it doesn't look too choppy. And now, let me see, gotta do a new Q-tip. Start in my lightest yellow. Yellow blends so well. Go down here. Little circles, little circles. Okay. Kind of pushing it into the paper. Picking up some of that red. Transitioning. I'm kind of going back and forth. Going into the yellow and orange and then into that red. Here we go. This is the fun stuff, guys. Make sure I get all, I want a nice smooth transition. That's what I'm shooting for. Nice smooth transition from these beautiful colors. And as long as I'm going from light to dark and I'm working my way around the color wheel, did you notice that? Then the colors are going to stay vivid and bright because there's no complements that I'm blending. These are all colors that are side by side. So if they're side by side, then they are considered analogous. Analogous colors are like best of friends. They're just easy, easy peasy to work with. And now I'm going to use my 6B pencil. I'm going to go back over this and I'm going to outline. Again, you can do this if you'd like. And maybe even give myself a little shadow underneath these drips. Just for fun. And if you want to, because your 6B is nice and soft, you can use a Q-tip and blur or blend the edge of that 6B pencil. All right, there we go, guys. Great job.